Bonjour, mes amis. I wanted to let you all know that I just got back from the biggest adventure of my life thus far. So I just lived in Paris, France for about 5 months. I just recently got back from Europe after being there from early January till the end of May, and I did a lot in that time frame. I lived in Paris for 4 of those months doing a semester of college there, and then I stayed in Europe for a few weeks traveling around and filming some really awesome stuff. Now, being able to do this was a huge deal for me. I've always kind of had an affinity for Paris. It was actually one of the first places I ever traveled to. When I was 9 years old, my mom and aunt took me to Paris. That was really when I solidified my love of travel and museums, and that set me onto the path that I've been on till today. That trip is also where I first started taking photographs. When I went on that trip when I was 9 years old, I had this very book with me. And ever since then, I've wanted to do everything in it, and now I can say that I have, and then some. I was also able to follow in the footsteps of another fellow Midwesterner, Ernest Hemingway. I was just a year younger than he was when he moved to Paris in 1921, and in his recollection of his early years in Paris, A Movable Feast, he wrote that if you are lucky enough to have lived in Paris as a young man, then wherever you go for the rest of your life, it stays with you, for Paris is a movable feast. And in my short time back, I have certainly found that to be true. There is a lot I could talk about. It was a very complex experience, but I figured I'd just discuss some of the places that I went, some places that you'll be seeing in videos eventually. So let's go look at a map. Alright, so this is the map of Paris, France. I was able to get all over this area entirely reliant on public transportation, which was fantastic. While it's not always enjoyable, public transportation in Paris is very efficient. So this is my Navigo card, and this worked really well for public transport in Paris. It's a rechargeable card, and what you can do is get a monthly pass. It's about $80, but it gets you unlimited transport in the Ile-de-France region on all the trains, metro, buses, whatever. It worked really well, and it's a great deal. I was able to get all over the place with this. So I guess first I'll show you over here. Paris is separated into 20 arrondissements or districts, and I was in the 20th arrondissement, which is right by the Cimetière Père Lachaise, which is where Jim Morrison is buried, lots of other famous people. I spent a lot of time going very in-depth, finding all sorts of famous graves in this cemetery. The Gambetta metro station is over here. I used that a lot, and I lived right by this intersection, right here. Besides the cemetery, this is not a very interesting area of Paris, so I was usually elsewhere. My school was over here in Le Marais, so I spent a lot of time in this very historic area of Paris. There are lots of old houses called Hôtels Particuliers, and many of them are now museums. This area was somewhat spared by Haussmann, so of course there's the Picasso Museum, the Carnavalet, which is the Museum of the History of Paris. That is one of my favorite museums in Paris. And yeah, I went all over, went to all sorts of fantastic museums across the city. The Cathedral Notre Dame, here on the Ile de la Cité, was closed right now due to the tragic 2019 fire. I did all sorts of stuff around here. I was over here at Les Halles a lot. This is Châtelet, the busiest metro stop in Paris. And they have one of the biggest malls right here. I actually had to go to this Fnac store a lot. The Centre Pompidou is right here. This is the Modern Art Museum. Moving on, here is the Louvre, the largest museum in the world. If you can imagine, I spent a lot of time here. I spent 3 full days filming nonstop. I really like the Palais Royal. I'd actually eat a boulangerie lunch here quite frequently. It was very nice and pretty safe. Of course, up here we have the Palais Garnier, the famous opera house designed by Charles Garnier. I did get to go in there. Musée Grévin is a really interesting wax museum, and there's lots of these old covered passages from the 19th century in this area. Those are cool. And from here we have the Champs-Élysées. I actually didn't spend too much time over here. I did go up in the Arc de Triomphe. By the way, the Musée Jacques-Martin-André here is great. If you're visiting Paris, make sure to check their website for their special exhibitions. I saw 2 very good ones here. Up here we have the Butte of Montmartre. I located the homes of many famous artists who lived here. I guess we'll go look at the left bank now. I really like the Jardin des Plantes. There are 2 super old school museums of natural history. I really enjoyed those. This here is a super old part of Paris called the Latin Quarter. There's several interesting museums in here, like Marie Curie's laboratory or the Pantheon. Over here is Saint-Germain-des-Prés, an area with a rich literary history. This whole area is where Ernest Hemingway haunted. The Jardin de Luxembourg is beautiful. Down here we have Montparnasse, which was an artistic hotspot in the 1920s, so 100 years ago. Up here is the Musée d'Orsay, one of my favorite museums in the world. I went here several times. If you don't want to wait to see what this museum is like, then I do have a video that I filmed on my previous trip to Paris. I forgot to mention the Orangerie, which has Monet's famous water lilies, Nymphaeus. I did get there an hour before they opened in the freezing cold and waited to be the first one in to see Monet's water lilies, which was an amazing experience. Over here is the Hôtel des Invalides, which has the Tomb of Napoleon, the Musée de l'Armée. Also, the Musée Rodin is fantastic. I definitely recommend that. Over here we have the Eiffel Tower. I did finally get to the top of the tower, even though it was freezing cold and there was not much visibility. That was really cool. I got to see Gustave Eiffel's secret apartment up there. Across the river is the Palais Chaillot, which has some interesting museums. The Musée de Quai Branly's, the non-Western art museum, that's great. And this whole area is actually the highest concentration of museums in Paris. Looking at Greater Paris, I did get all around. There's all sorts of wonderful gems hidden throughout this area. I did go to the catacombs, of course. Also, I got to see two fantastic exhibitions at the Fondation Louis Vuitton. This more modern area called Bercy is really interesting. There are two museums that I really like. First of all, the Musée des Arts Francs, the Fairground Art Museum. That's a totally unique experience that I would definitely recommend. As well as La Cinémathèque and the Musée Méliès. Also, I do want to give props to France. First of all, because most museums are very photographer and videographer friendly. Also, any museums in the Paris area that are operated by the government, which is a lot of them, actually provide free admission to EU residents under the age of 26. However, because of my EU visa that I had to get to do this, I accounted for that, so I got into a lot of museums for free, so I could literally go to the Musée du Louvre or the Musée d'Orsay whenever I wanted. Yeah, I could really go on and on about Paris. There's all sorts of stuff outside the ring road that I went to. The Basilica de Saint-Denis is really interesting over here. Down this way we have the Chateau de Versailles. I spent 2 days at Versailles. That place is absolutely amazing. And while a lot of people go to Versailles, they don't know that the Chateau de Fontainebleau, which is almost equally as important, is also in the Ile-de-France region. It's a little ways away, but that's also pretty incredible. I also went over here to Meaux. There's a great World War I museum there. And then over here, there it is, Auvers-sur-Oise. This is where Vincent van Gogh spent his final months, and this was absolutely incredible to go through this town, see his grave. But quite honestly, I think the highlight was over here at Disneyland Paris. If you don't know, I am a huge fan of the Disney parks and Disney history, so I spent a lot of time here and had so much fun. I have to say, this park is absolutely beautiful. It's incredibly immersive, especially Frontierland. Love me some Phantom Manor. I love this place so much. Walt Disney Studios Park could use a little work, but it's still a lot of fun. So yeah, a lot of good memories there. Went there with some friends a few times and have a lot of content. And this here is the best purchase I have ever made. This is my Magic Plus annual pass for Disneyland Paris, which sadly I will not get any more use out of this year. This pass works great. It basically allows you to get in whenever you want. There's still a reservation system, so that can be a pain sometimes. But I was able to get into Disneyland Paris on over 20 different days, and this costs less than 3-day passes to Disneyland Paris, so it's definitely a great deal if you live on the continent. I also did a good deal of traveling outside the Paris region. I mostly stayed in Paris during my semester, but I went out a few times. I actually made 2 trips into Normandy. One was just a little day trip over here to Giverny, where I saw Claude Monet's home and gardens. I also went on a school trip into Normandy. I went much farther. I got to see the Bayeux Tapestry. I did get to see a few of the D-Day Operation Overlord sites, which were absolutely amazing. That's an area I want to do much more in depth, but that's a video I'm excited to share with you. I also took a school-sanctioned day trip up to Brussels, Belgium. I had never been here before, so that was cool, even though I didn't get to do much. Saw the mannequin piss. I also took the Eurostar under the English Channel up to London, England. That day trip is possible, though I certainly wouldn't recommend it. I basically came here for the Donatello special exhibition at the Victoria and Albert Museum, as well as the After Impressionism Making Modern Art special exhibition at the National Gallery. That was definitely worth it. Also, thanks to some very generous viewers of the channel, I got to visit Maastricht in the Limburg region of the Netherlands. This is a very interesting city that not a lot of people know about. I didn't know much about it before I went, so those videos will probably be coming soon. They even have a bookstore and an old church. But one really awesome opportunity was that I got to attend and cover TAFAF. It's the European Fine Arts Fair, and it's a very big deal. I was absolutely blown away by the high quality artwork they had on sale there. So that alone is going to be one of the coolest videos ever on this channel. So after my study abroad semester ended, I flew over to Vienna, where I was able to stay with another friend. By the way, if you guys are watching, thank you so much. I was really impressed with Vienna. If you're planning a European trip, I urge you to include Vienna in your itinerary. There's so many great museums like the Kunsthistorisches Museum. Actually, the Albertina over here is one of my favorites, as is the Belvedere Museum, where I got to see a special Gustav Klimt exhibition. Now, I didn't quite get to everything I wanted to in Vienna. Didn't get to Prater, unfortunately, but there's going to be a lot of Vienna videos. It was such an awesome experience, definitely a highlight. Then I started a train journey. First, I went to Munich for a couple of days. I originally wasn't planning to come here, but I found out they actually had one of the Disney 100 special exhibitions at Olympia Park. Here it is. So they had a Walt Disney Archives exhibition here about the history of the company. That was so awesome. I did not have too much time here, but I did go to the Alte Pinakothek, which is an art museum, as well as the Lembach House, which is a collection of the Blaureiter. So that's Vasily Kandinsky, Franz Marc, and others. Really like that. From Munich, I spent basically a whole day on trains trying to get up to Tilburg in the Netherlands. Where's Tilburg? Here it is. Yeah, that was quite the journey. Now, there's a reason I came all the way out here, as I absolutely had to see the Efteling. Efteling is a very historic and high-quality theme park. It's one of the world's greatest alongside the Disney parks. I thought it was pure magic and I would love to go again. And after that, I went up to Amsterdam. If you watched my Europe Trip 2022 videos, you'll see that I was in Amsterdam very briefly. I didn't really have any time to explore, so I ended up having like a day and a half here. The primary reason was to go to the Rijksmuseum. That was my first time there, and I was very lucky to get into the Johannes Vermeer exhibition, what's been called the exhibition of the century. Don't know about that, but it was an amazing once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see most of Vermeer's small body of work in one place. I was also able to be at the opening of the Van Gogh in Auvers exhibition. As mentioned, I did go to Auvers, so I saw most of the artwork that he painted during those 3 months. That was another incredible experience. That's still there, and it's going to be at the Musée d'Orsay later this year, so I'd implore you to visit that if you can. And my last destination was down here in Barcelona, Spain. I've always wanted to see the architecture of Antoni Gaudi, so that was so awesome to visit Sagrada Familia and Park Güell, Casa Mila. I was able to spend quite a bit of time here, so I got to visit a variety of places. I really like the Museum of Catalan Art and the Miró Museum. I also took a day trip north of Barcelona to Figueres, which is home to the Dalí Theater Museum. This is a big museum that was designed by Salvador Dalí himself in his hometown. That place was so freaking weird. I also went over here to Cadaqués on the Mediterranean Ocean to see Dalí's house, which was also freaking weird. So yeah, that was by far and away the best experience of my life so far. I am so incredibly fortunate to have been able to do something like that. I have a lot of people to thank for making this happen over the years of planning and then actually doing it. If any of you are watching this, I hope that you know that I am eternally grateful. So as for the content for Hoosier Tours, Obviously, I filmed hundreds of videos while I was over there, and I still have a lot of US content that I still haven't edited, so this is going to be a long process. My videos are heavily researched and edited, so it's quite a laborious process to make these, and it's going to take me a lot of time. I work as fast as I can, but I do other work, I'm in college, I have a life as well, so it may be a while. I have already started working on videos from Vienna. Most of the other locations in Europe I think are going to come much earlier than the Paris series. That's going to be quite the project. But I think you can expect those fairly soon, within this year. So if you have any questions about traveling in Europe or study abroad, which by the way for any younger people watching is possible, it's never too early to start planning and looking into scholarship. For me it was a years-long process to be able to do this. So if anyone has questions about any of that, then leave a comment in the comments section. And if you want to support my work and justify this madness, then the best thing you can do is watch the videos. Clicking the like button on my videos does help it in the algorithm, as do comments in the comments section. Both of those are easy ways to help me fight the algorithm. Also, I don't mention this in regular videos, but I do have a Patreon. If you don't know, Patreon is a site where you can financially support independent creators like myself. My page is patreon.com/HoosierTours. Patrons of my channel did really help to make all this possible, and I'm really grateful for that. You can join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, and that gets you access to exclusive content that I post on there. I try to post something monthly. Sorry I wasn't very good about that when I was in Europe. But yeah, if that's something you want to do and are able to do, I would really appreciate that. So thank you all so much for choosing to watch my channel. I can't wait for you all to see the magnitude of this adventure as we explore some of the world's greatest treasures in Europe. Au revoir.